Renactus Technology President Rick Smith joins this week to help us break down a bunch of news from Microsoft, the where, how, and why of Windows 365 and the 2022 Business Notebook primaries, plus a special guest interview with Alveo CEO MJ Patent on service portfolio management. It's Channel Pro Weekly number 233, Zoo Scan. Hello and welcome to Channel Pro Weekly episode number 233. My name is Matt Whitlock, technology editor, online director, and your host of this fine show for folks like you, the VARs, the IT integrators, the IT consultants, the system builders, the I said IT consultants, but if you do that twice in a day, I guess you could do that twice. What else am I missing? Managed services, security provider. There's lots of different things that you could be, and if you're any of those things, you're in the right place. If you are a librarian at a local library, you're gonna learn a lot here too that you can share with the patrons who come in and check out books. Do they still check out books in libraries? We're gonna find out, and I know the man who happens to know that answer to that and many more things. He is the co-host here, the man of the hour, executive editor Rich Freeman. Welcome, Rich.
Well, thank you, and welcome to our audience to Seattle, Washington, where I'm guessing it's about 20 degrees cooler right now than it is in most of the country right now. So if you are baking, if you are melting, this is the place to be for right now. Although next week it's supposed to be our turn. Hey, and welcome back, Matt.
Yeah, it is. It's gonna be back. I realized after listening to a good chunk, I haven't gotten to the whole show yet, but I listened to and watched a good chunk of it and realized that you do a really good job when I'm not here. So kudos to Rich. Way to go. Nice job filling in. In fact, you don't even need me, so I quit.
Please don't do that, because that was only the second time I've ever done that, and it's just reminds me each time there's actually a fair amount of work involved, and I'm glad you're doing that and not me.
there is, but it was a good show. From what I've listened to so far, I'm about 60% through it, so I'll finish that up later. But yeah, it was great stuff. It went well. And Rich, and now I asked about libraries. Do they have libraries in Seattle, and do they still check out books? Are those a thing, like paper things?
They definitely have libraries, and as far as I know, there are still books in those libraries. So yeah, in fact, I now that I'm thinking about it, I have a friend, because I'm the guy who just goes online and buys the book, but he does most of his reading from the library, and he checks out physical books. This can still be done.
I think the last time I was at a library, it was a local one. It was a few years ago, because we don't actually have a library like in my area. We have to go to a town over, and then there's like a fee you have to pay. But I remember going in there and I'm like, there were books, but there was also like this huge section of like DVDs and movies and stuff. And I'm like, am I in a library or am I in a Blockbuster? I was really confused on that. Do you have like a lot of media at the library in Seattle?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I mean, it really is just like books. So if a hot new book gets published, you can go on the Seattle Public Library website and like get on the wait list to get it. And it's the same with movies and you name it. There's always a finite supply of these things, and you can sign up, but they are stocking everything that people want to take home.
Who knew that one day the local library would take on Blockbuster and Netflix at the same time? It's pretty amazing stuff. But they're all doomed because there's libraries everywhere, I guess. Anyway, it's good to be back, Rich. How was your week?
My week was good. You got to tell me about yours. You're the one. What were you at? Were you hang gliding? Were you surfing? What were you doing?
I was at a national softball tournament and also working, believe it or not. So it was a half vacation, I suppose, but it was pretty good. We had fun, and yeah, that way. Literally was my week because my daughter and I were in the great city of Evansville, Indiana, from Monday until Saturday. So it took the whole week, but we did get to do some fun things while we were there. We got to visit a it was like a naval ship. I'm trying to remember. It was the something 325. The landing. Oh, I didn't know you were going to ask me about this. The LST 325 World War II landing ship. And that was pretty cool. So this was the last fully decked out in its World War II configuration. It's like a landing ship. So it's the kind of ship they would beach onto the beach, and like tanks and stuff would roll out. So this is what like did that. But this ship actually happened to be at Normandy in World War II and made like 20 some trips across the English Channel during the landing at Normandy. So really interesting history, really cool stuff. I might send you pictures if you're interested. But if anyone's in Evansville, I would recommend checking that out. And we went to a zoo. So we went to a zoo, Rich. That was like every other zoo I've been to. There was animals, and they were pretty much either non-existent or they were all like sleeping because it was really hot. So they were all like hiding. And I actually made a joke. Rich, do you go to a lot of zoos?
You know, we have a great zoo here in Seattle. It's been a while since I've been there, though. But yeah, now and again, I will go to a zoo.
I always kind of laugh because they have these giant enclosures, and like, and you go to the zoo and you walk around, and like you can never see the animal that's in the enclosure. So I kind of made a crack while we were on this we're at the zoo, because like we went to like, I don't know, probably we went 30 minutes going from, enclosure, and I didn't see a single animal. So I was like, it was like, that one line from Jurassic Park where Ian Malcolm like goes and he goes, there are dinosaurs on the dinosaur tour, right? And I was like, there are animals here, right? And I'm like, well, maybe not. Maybe the way the zoos are cutting back is they just build the enclosure, they put a picture of the animal and information about it on the side, but then they just said, you know what, though, we can just save money by not actually having the animal, and everyone will just think that it's hiding and sleeping. So that's the new way zoos are ran.
It's a zoo scam. They could absolutely pull that off, because I think that, and the more often you go to a zoo, the more conditioned you are to expect the animals probably aren't going to be visible anyway. So yeah, that could work.
Right, and then they focus all the animals that you do see are the ones that are like in the reptile house, because they're easy to take care of, because they just basically sit in a tank all day and don't do anything. But yeah, so that's my theory on zoos going. And prove me wrong, folks. If that's not how it is, let me know. But anyway, that was my vacation in a nutshell. And I of course did some work as well for reasons that we're not going to get into on the show. But there were some change up things that happened here, and all kinds of I'm going to say non-exciting things, but some stuff that happened that brought me out of my vacation to do some work. But yeah, we did that as well, and that was my vacation in a nutshell. So, Rich, what do we got? We got a big show ahead. We got an awesome guest host. We're going to get to him in a minute. We got some Microsoft news today. We're going to be talking about a notebook roundup piece that I actually did. And another thing that's coming up, Rich, is our event in Charlotte. Why don't we tell people about that?
Boy, that is coming up fast, isn't it? That is, I believe, August 8th and 9th, Monday, Tuesday, the 8th and 9th of August in Charlotte, North Carolina. This is the fourth of 6 of these events that we are doing around the country this year. 2-day events, one big main day, and then some interesting pre-day stuff as well. And I'll say right up front, the place to get all the details is events.channelpronetwork.com. But I'll just kind of let folks know we are going to be focusing in on all the things that you tell us you care about, all the top of mind stuff. We've got a session on security. We've got a session about Microsoft Azure and getting an Azure practice off the ground. We're going to be talking about Azure in a few minutes here. Actually, we're going to be talking about everybody's favorite topic right now, which is hiring and retention. We've got a very fun session that we do kind of modeled after the old TV game show, the dating game, about how to win over that job candidate other people are competing for and keep that person on the job. We've got a really interesting session about MSP strategy and navigating the M&A landscape and so on. So what the stuff that you're really kind of thinking about and interested to get input on these days is exactly what we lined up this conference to provide. We are in Charlotte in August. We are in the Washington, D.C. area in September. And then we are in the Southern California, Los Angeles area in November. And again, events.channelpronetwork.com. Please join us at one or all of those events.
Absolutely, yeah, you definitely want to go. And if you're interested in attending the Charlotte event, it's really surprising how fast this event came, because we were going to get like a little bit of a break in July, and I don't know what happened to the month, but it just flew by, and here we are again, folks. Join us in Charlotte. I guarantee you'll have a great time. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to get a lot out of it. and you want to be there. So to do that, I'm going to put a graphic on the screen. There's a QR code. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell, hit all the stuff, but scan that code. It'll take you right to the registration page. If you're listening, go to channelproforum.com/Charlotte. I think I pronounced that right. Yeah. Is it Chart? No, it's not Charlotte. It is Charlotte. So
Yep.
What do they spell with an SH then? I don't know. What is it? What is it with these people? Anyway, go to that URL and that'll take you right to the registration page. Use promo code. It's a CPVIP, and that will let you bypass the fee to get in, and maybe free to get in, but you're going to get a lot out of it. So make sure you do that. Use that code and join us in Charlotte, North Carolina. What date did you say it was, Rich?
Monday, August 8th and Tuesday, August 9th.
Be there or be, you're not even going to be square if you're not there. Be there or be triangle. So think about that. It's important. All right. Anyway, Rich, I've got, I'm like, I miss a week and I'm like so out of practice. I can't take vacations anymore. It's just so hard to come back. But I am really excited because we get an awesome guest host today. I believe it's his first time on the show, if I remember correctly. I was looking through the notes and he's not been on before. So this is super exciting. And who is he? He is the president and founder of Renactus Technology, which has been servicing Central New Jersey SMBs since 2003. He's also the host of the MSP Unplugged podcast with our longtime friend, Paco LeBron. Please welcome Rick Smith. Welcome, Rick.
Hey, thanks for having me, Matt. Thank you.
It is awesome to have you on. I went back and I looked at the notes to make sure that you haven't been on before, because I know we've had Paco on a variety of times, and I'm super excited that you're here. Now, we'll talk about the MSP Unplugged podcast a little bit in a minute, but first, tell us a little bit more about you and a little bit more about Renactus Technology.
Okay, well, I am a father of three, and I say that because it leads to everything else that has happened. But I've been in the industry for north of 24 years now. I started Renactus actually it was another company at first. And it was Break Fix back in 2003. And it was called Tay-Ray Solutions. It was named after my oldest daughter, Taylor Renee. And at the time, she was my only child when I started the company. So it just, it worked out that I named the company after her. We were a Break Fix company for 12 years. And then I started to get a little bit more, we did a lot of work for businesses, but it was only on the break fix model, no contracts, no MSP structure. We changed over for, I guess, two reasons. One, the kids, my younger, by this time I had two more children, and they were really like, well, why is the company named after Taylor? So it was I gave them a challenge. I said, okay, we'll rename the company because we're going to redo the business anyway. I'll let you guys pick the name. So the girls went, they picked the name. And, I said, the only thing is just, remember, this is a new beginning, a new start. So we want something in that. They came up with Renactus, which I'd never heard of before. It turns out, I didn't find this out till a little later. Renatus is what they meant to call it, which means new beginning or new birth. And they somehow dropped a C in there in the name, and it just stuck, and we stayed with it. So in 2014, Renactus was technically born as an MSP, and then we've been basically servicing customers throughout Jersey. We have some customers actually in 4 states: Jersey, New York, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Actually, excuse me, and I forgot California, but it's only one time. But and that's how Renactus got started, and that's where we are today.
So tell us a little bit more about that journey, because I know we talk to a lot of MSPs, and we talk a lot on the show like everybody is an MSP, but honestly, there are still a lot of break fix companies that are out there on working that model, and there are some that could work that model successfully, but it must have been a journey and a lot of change kind of moving towards managed services. Tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that you face and some of the things that you learned along the way that might be of use to those who might be still in break fix businesses, but looking to kind of change that model as well.
Well, I tell you, it's a paradigm shift in your brain and the way you handle things, and the approach you have to take to servicing customers. So, I would say we still do, like I would say 95.5. We're still a small hybrid. And that's only for customers that we've had, that we've just been doing work for forever, that for whatever reason, they may be residential or they're small companies and we just haven't adopted them to the managed service process. So we still do that. They'll call, I'll service them. We don't take on any new break fix clients. When we get phone calls for it, we will refer them out. We have a couple of people that still do the break fix model that we will refer them out to. So for me in the journey, I started, I worked for a, Fortune 10 company in the IT services. So when I made the transition over, it was really just because I was, kind of miserable with going to work every day. It was tired. I had the kids. And this goes back to the reason why I always bring up the fact that I have three, I'm a father of three, is because I love spending time with my kids. This, becoming an entrepreneur, which wasn't necessarily on the radar in the beginning, afforded me the time to spend an enormous amount of time with my kids, seeing sporting events, school plays, dances, whatever it may be. I had the opportunity to do it. So it incorporated part of my lifestyle and incorporates part of the culture of the company that I'm trying to create. Is basically, we're family oriented. That comes first. We can make exceptions, we can fix things, and we try to push that on as well to our customers, but it's the transition was just, it's just the paradigm shift of knowing you have to be now proactive with everything. You have to, and get your clients to understand what you're doing. And the difference is, for them as well, when they see you all the time and they pay you, they know they had a problem and you solved it, right? And that's why they pay you. Now it can be times where they don't see you and they wonder, why am I paying you? I don't have any problems. And the shift has to be, keeping that constant communication with them that, hey, we are doing things even though you don't see us. And it's part of the whole, the whole mindset you have to have going into it. So I did have in the beginning, it was a rough time making a transition, because again, you go from, and again, you go from trying to explain a concept to someone who's used to doing it another way. And if you're not used to doing it that way itself, it gets hard to make, to explain it. Basically, another way to put it, I suck at selling the product of managed services to the clients at first. Now it's second nature, but it is a transition. But I don't never discourage those who still are in the break fix model, because I do believe there's money to be made there. I get at least 2 to 3 phone calls a week still from people asking me to do that work. And that's just because they just, find me on Google or something and they'll call. But it's just, again, it's just another way of doing it. And I encourage everyone, whatever is your strength that makes you happy, that you can make money from and live and take care of your family, that's the model you follow.
Very fascinating. And so you also are involved with the MSP Unplugged podcast. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, that's something where, I'm learning. It's a learning curve for me. Paco and I actually met at a conference in maybe 5 years ago now, which actually was an offshoot of what we're doing now. But we met, we became fast friends. And we stayed in touch. We've done some peer group work together. We've stayed friends, talked a lot. And he was partnered with 2 other people who decided at the end of the end of last year, or towards the end of last year, that they were going to retire out. And basically they were burned out and wanted to move on. So he said his first thought was to call me and ask me if I'd be interested in doing it with him. Partnering with him. We restarted the company, and I immediately said yes. It's really because of the friendship Paco and I have, the respect I have for him and what he's doing. And I was a longtime listener of the podcast, and it had helped me in that transition we're talking about from break fix to MSP. A lot of the people I met and the topics and the conferences that they had really helped me grow. So I was ecstatic about, joining on. So, in a nutshell, what MSP Unplugged is, we just basically are trying to help. We don't say MSP specifically. We're talking, IT business owners and whatever you classify yourself as doing. Our goal there is to help those business owners just grow their business. We bring on other MSPs to talk about their business, what they're doing. Paco and I will sit around and shoot the crap with each other about our day or how we're approaching things. And then that's our first show of the week, which is on a Tuesday. And then on a Thursday, we have a vendor on. Any vendors that we feel are relevant in the channel that could help our community grow. We bring them on and have a conversation with them about their product. So in a nutshell, that is MSP Unplugged. And it is, even though it takes up some time, it is, something I really enjoy.
Cool. So how many episodes have you been involved with that now? When did you kind of join?
We and this is something that's weird. We don't have a count on anymore, but we started in November, and we've we've missed a show here and there, but for the most part, we do 2 shows a week. So and it's funny, Paco has been, he's been doing this for a while now, so he's experienced. And when, my biggest thing was, I have no, microphone presence, I'm nervous. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. And, he just basically coached me along. He said, hey, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to, you just keep going. And I'm still learning. I sometimes I was just thinking about when Rich was talking about you were gone. There's been a couple of times where Paco leaves and he's at a conference or he's got a family event or something's going on, and I have to host a show myself. And I'm like, oh God. But it's getting better. It's growing. But I really do enjoy it. I didn't think I would, but I really do enjoy it, and I look forward to doing the shows.
Well, awesome. And I'll make sure that we put a link in the show notes to where they can go and learn more about the podcast. And we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the show. But it's awesome that you do it. And, Paco's a good friend of ours, and we've had him on before. So it's good to see that it's still going strong and that you guys are doing well. So what's been the most interesting thing about learning how to podcast? What stands out as a unique experience that you've had doing it?
You know what it is paying attention, which is really funny. But you can have a guest on or Paco and I talking, and it's so easy, particularly if you're sitting at home or in your office, wherever you are, to get distracted, right? You forget you're on. And we do our podcast live. So every podcast is live. And I think that's the biggest thing. There's been a couple of times where something has been said and I was focused on something else, and then it's my turn to talk, and I'm lost. I'm not sure where I'm supposed to go with it. But I think that is, if there's one lesson in it, that's going to be pay attention to what's going on. But, again, I think the greatest thing and the greatest advice Paco's given me, because I know I screwed up a lot in the beginning, and he was like, don't worry about it. Just keep going. And it's gotten a lot easier. Again, it's like I said, I'm still learning, but I'm enjoying it.
Well, very, very good. Awesome stuff. And, it's kind of funny. It's hard to do a show by yourself because Rich has always been very diligent about taking vacations. So he's, when he goes on vacation, he's gone. I have only actually missed 2 episodes.
Oh, awesome.
So far. It's all it's been because Rich, you've been on your own, I think, twice.
Yeah.
And that was by your advice too, because the last time I took a vacation, you're like, you need to be on vacation and not work. And I took that advice and I try to do that now, and we'll see how it goes. But it's not easy doing it by yourself. But it is a lot of fun, and it's very rewarding. And I'm sure we'll point people to the MSP Unplugged podcast, and I'm sure they'll get a lot out of that as well. We are going to move on, though. We've got a lot in the show coming up. We're going to talk about Microsoft. We're going to talk about lots of Microsoft news. So something must have happened with Microsoft, and I'm sure Rich will tell us about that. We're going to an article, kind of a roundup we did on notebooks that we're going to talk about, that we'll get to. We're gonna have a fascinating interview with MJ Patton. She's the founder and CEO of Alveo. We're gonna talk about service portfolio management. Really, really interesting conversation. We recorded that kind of earlier, and we'll put that in. But it's a really great interview. Very, very interesting stuff that you'll want to check out. And yeah, so Rich, why don't we move right along? Our first story, the new incoming channel chief for Microsoft, because they've been rotating through those, it seems, the last couple of years. There's never been a better time to be a Microsoft partner, even though all of the Microsoft partners are saying, what the hell are you doing with all the partner programs? Rich, tell us why this guy says there's never been a better time.
This not a guy, but thank you. Yeah, that's actually a terrific setup. So this week, Microsoft held its annual Inspire Partner Conference for the third year, I guess, in a row. It was online only, a virtual event. And we talked about this a little bit in the podcast last week. I'm quite confident they held it online, for pandemic-related safety kinds of reasons. But it was awfully convenient that they didn't have to physically be in a space with 25,000 somewhat frustrated partners right now. This was a little bit easier for them. Now the incoming channel chief you alluded to there, I mean, she is brand new. Folks will remember that her predecessor, Rodney Clark, left the company in May. It was kind of a surprise. We didn't know where he was going for a little bit. Turns out he's in a very senior position at Johnson Controls. And last week, Microsoft announced that his replacement would be a woman named Nicole Dezen, and I she's new enough that I may even be mispronouncing her last name. It's spelled Dezen. Been at Microsoft for a while. Her title now is Chief Partner Officer. They have never had a Chief Partner Officer at Microsoft before. She's the first. But essentially, she is the channel chief there going forward. And, there are two big reasons why a lot of partners are maybe a little frustrated now. And one, of course, and we've talked about both these things on the show with help from our buddy Dave Seibert. One is the new commerce experience and the transition for the cloud solution provider program to this very different model of pricing and billing and the whole deal. It's been very disruptive. There's been a lot of work involved for partners in making that transition. And I'll be very interested to hear Rick's experiences about that. But I mean, this is an ongoing process for a lot of folks. And then the other thing is coming up in October. The Microsoft Partner Network, which is Microsoft's partner program, is becoming something very, very new called the Microsoft Cloud Partner Program. Entirely, competencies are going away. There were 19 of those. There are going to be 6 solution areas. Silver and gold status, that goes away. There are these 2 designations. So again, very disruptive thing that's coming up, and Microsoft has spoken a great deal about both of those things. I was curious to see how directly they would address these issues at Inspire this week, and the answer is not very directly. New commerce experience, to the best of my knowledge, and I wasn't watching every minute. There may have been a breakout on this, but at least in the keynotes that I was paying attention to, nothing did not come up at all. They did talk a little bit about the new partner program, and they did kind of help explain how this transition from 19 competencies to 6 solution areas is going to benefit partners. And I'm quoting a gentleman named Dan Rippey. He is the director of partner programs at Microsoft. And he said at one point during Inspire, we're making it easier for you to go to market and sell with us because our programs now represent the way we go to market and sell as a business. These 2 motions are now identical. No need for a translation dictionary between your business and ours. So basically, the focus areas within the partner program now align cleanly one-to-one with the focus areas within Microsoft itself and the sales organization, which presumably makes it easier for everybody to work together and go to market together. Now, there was some discussion, and again, I'll be curious to hear if Rick can provide some feedback on this. Rippey, during his presentation, kind of, alluded to the fact that they've got all these big, great new benefits coming in the new partner program, but nobody is going to get kicked out of the benefit package that they have now. When Dezen was speaking at one point, she was kind of talking about sales incentives and investments around those, and she kind of hinted basically that we are listening to our partners, we are collecting feedback, looking for ways to make changes there, which sort of suggests that there may be some dissatisfaction there that I know a whole lot about in detail right now, but from the body language there, it sounds like they're looking to reassure partners this isn't set in stone yet. Beyond that, a lot of what they focused on, as you would expect, is the opportunity in the cloud for Microsoft and its partners. They talked a little bit about resources they were going to be rolling out to help people seize that. There are going to be more of these workshops that they introduced in their 2022 fiscal year, which ended in June. They've got a lot of new learning resources coming. There is a tool, I guess it's more like a project right now, Project Orland, which ultimately is going to be an AI-powered customer lifecycle management tool. It's going to help partners identify potential new customers, cross-sell opportunities within existing ones, customers may be at risk due to satisfaction issues. That went into private preview a year ago. We were told that now in October, it will go into a public preview. Anyone in the Cloud Solution Provider program will be eligible for that beginning in October. And then the other thing that they talked about here, which we won't get into in great detail right now, is they signed a deal with a company called Tackle.io, which specializes in marketplace software. Their software is designed to help channel partners get onto cloud marketplaces with Microsoft, Google, AWS, et cetera, and learn how to benefit from doing business that way. And so they've been working with Microsoft for a while, but they've kind of deepened that relationship now to make it easier, mostly for ISVs, for software developers, to connect with the two Microsoft cloud marketplaces, AppSource and the Azure Marketplace. Probably most of the people in the audience here maybe won't be directly affected by that short term, but it is kind of significant for them, because what Microsoft is trying to do is get more developers into the marketplaces. And they made a point of emphasizing during Inspire, we've got 90,000 cloud solution provider program members. And one of the benefits to you as a software maker of getting on our marketplaces is we will connect you to those CSP members and help you sell through them. So down the road, more software makers on the marketplaces should result in more business for CSP members as well.
So, Rick, I'll go to you for your opinion. Is it a great time to be a Microsoft partner?
For me, it's the same time to be a Microsoft partner. and I'll just say this, I am not as well versed in the changes that are coming, but I do understand that the bulk of it is going to hit the gold and silver partner level. I am not at either one of those levels. We don't do enough business to qualify for either one of those. Enough Microsoft business. So, and the other part of that is I did go through, someone pointed out to me that I guess they're going to work on a point system now is how you move along. I would be way down in the point scale, the way it is measured, because it's basically, my understanding is geared towards newer business as opposed to retained business that's coming into the new way they're setting this up. Now, again, I'm not going to profess to be, as well versed in all the changes that are coming, but I think for me and my level and most of the MSPs that are at my level, I don't think there will be much change that we will encounter. I could be totally wrong with that, but I don't think so. And the other thing is, and I'll say this, and this is just to be as honest as I can about Microsoft and changes. They seem to start down a path, and then something happens, and for some reason that path gets switched or it goes backwards. So I'm going to be one of those, I'll believe it when I see it.
Sounds good. Richard, anything else in here we want to comment on? I mean, it's a lot of corporate speak, you know what I'm trying to say, right?
Yeah, I mean, from a certain perspective, they focused a lot on the things that would normally come up at an Inspire conference, right? It's like, what are the investment areas? What are opportunities for you? If this was an ordinary year, this would have been a very ordinary kind of agenda and set of topics for them to be addressing. It's a little bit out of the ordinary because so many things are changing, and there are so many partners who are, to one extent or another, to some degree or another, unhappy about it. Which just kind of made things kind of complicated. But yeah, mostly it's, Microsoft's fiscal year begins July 1st, and here's where we're going in the next 12 months, and here's what we think it means for you.
Absolutely, and good luck to Nicole Dazen. Do you know, Rich? You said you didn't know how to pronounce it. Well, the new channel partner officer at Microsoft. Good luck to her. Hopefully she can make everybody happy again and make it even better, because we want it to be we want being a Microsoft. Everyone is basically a Microsoft partner, so we rely on them to have good programs and good tools in place to sell new customers. I want to get off of that stuff though, and I want to talk about the new stuff that they introduced. So they had some new stuff they were talking about with Azure migration, some Teams features, a whole laundry list of new things. Rich, tell us about that.
Yeah, and this is stuff, not coming up in the next 12 months. This is basically stuff that they kind of announced as coming right now at the very beginning of the conference. And so just to set up one piece of that, during the Inspire keynotes a few days ago, an executive named Kathleen Mitford, who's the corporate vice president of Azure Marketing, was talking about money-making opportunities in the cloud, and she particularly pointed to, a good old-fashioned lift and shift, kind of moving on-premises workloads into the cloud. And in particular, she called attention to the quote-unquote tens of millions of on-prem Windows servers and SQL servers out there right now, and really kind of urged partners to focus on getting those into Azure, because extended support for SQL Server 2012 just ended within the last few days or weeks. Extended support for Windows Server 2012 and 2012 R2 ends, I believe, October 2023, and there's a lot of that still out there. And so, with that in mind, one of the things Microsoft announced this week is they have made some incentive upgrades, sales incentive upgrades for their Azure Migration and Modernization Program, the AMMP, which once upon a time was called the Azure Migration Program. Basically, incentives on new migrations are 2.5 times higher than before. So they've kind of raised the compensation to get people focused on moving those Windows servers and SQL servers up into Azure ASAP. They also announced a brand new cloud solution called the Microsoft Digital Contact Center Platform. It is a contact center solution for companies that have a contact center. It combines Dynamics 365 with Microsoft Teams and the Microsoft Power Platform, best known for Power BI. A lot of artificial intelligence in here. In fact, Microsoft earlier this year completed the acquisition of a company called Nuance that uses AI around speech recognition. There's a lot of Nuance technology in this new solution here. But it's basically going to provide a lot of user self-service functionality to contact centers. That's going to give contact center agents information that will kind of help them anticipate what a customer is going to ask for, direct them to knowledge center articles that might make answering a question easier, maybe make some real-time sales recommendations or promotion advice that's something you can bring up with a customer. So new cloud business solution for folks who are in the Microsoft cloud. For Microsoft Teams, back in May at the Build conference that Microsoft does every year, they announced something called Live Share, which is a new set of capabilities coming to Microsoft Teams. The first example of Live Share is now available. It's called Excel Live, and basically what it allows you to do is, if you are in a meeting with other people in Teams, you can all kind of not just look at, it's not just somebody sharing their screen and, hey, here's my spreadsheet. You can all kind of collaborate on it together in real time. There's a new feature in chat now called Video Clip, which makes it a little bit easier to record and send and view short videos and chat. They added a social media tool to Viva. Microsoft Viva is Microsoft calls it an employee experience platform, but I mean, basically it's a set of tools that are designed to keep employees engaged and happy, and designed to help HR departments kind of keep an eye on employees and make sure that they're engaged and happy. And there's now a social media tool in there that builds on Yammer, Microsoft's existing kind of social media tool to get people connected and interacting with one another. And then last but not least, Windows 365. It hard to believe, but Windows, and we'll be talking more about Windows 365 in a few minutes, that debuted a year ago. They have made some changes that they announced this week to the business edition of 365, designed to make signing in via existing Microsoft accounts a little bit more seamless, restoring virtual devices to earlier points in time, easier than before, and coming up soon. And this is interesting, you'll be able to enroll those Windows 365 cloud PCs alongside physical PCs in Microsoft Endpoint Manager, which is their endpoint management tool, previously really for the physical PCs, and they're kind of turning that into more of a unified control panel for everything. And they introduced a new version of Windows 365 specifically for public sector, for government clients here in the US, like, state, local, federal clients. There's some more security and compliance functionality in there that businesses in that sector need, or they just can't use the tool.
That's a lot. That's a lot to go through. Rick, why don't we turn to you and say, like, what of all of that new is of most interest to you?
Teams. The Teams cross sharing is probably something that we actually it worked for us a couple of weeks ago. We didn't even know about it, and we didn't pay attention. On the on the Excel spreadsheets, we were working on a spreadsheet, and you can see someone else touching it, and it basically highlights who's doing it in a cell, which I think is awesome. That's great for collaboration. I also think the cross. I don't know if we talked about this, but they have a way now you'll be able to share outside of the tenant to tenant sharing as well, which I think is gonna be awesome. That's, for me, that would be a great feature to have. So of all of that, that is probably the most important to me. I think the Windows 365, I initially thought there would be no need for it. I'm starting to rethink that a little now. Depending on certain scenarios, particularly in the work from home environment. So that is something I'm going to be paying a little bit more attention to. But
yeah, Rich, the whole Windows 365 thing is interesting because that all kind of came together right at the right time. There was this huge push from work from home. But did they give any numbers, like how many of those that they are out there?
They did not, that I'm aware of. And honestly, 4 times a year, like next week, Microsoft posts its latest quarterly financials for the 4th quarter of their previous fiscal year. Every time they do this, I go in there. I'm curious to see the Azure growth percentage and where that stands. But I'm also looking to see if they tout any Windows 365 numbers, because they won't always kind of update you on monthly active users for Teams, but sometimes they do. I think the most recent number is like 270 million or something crazy worldwide, but I haven't seen a number for Windows 365. And we were talking about this a little bit with Eric Long of TerraCloud last week. I think my perception is everybody out there in the channel is aware of this now, and there's a lot of tire kicking going on. I know people who are selling it to their customers, but just the very anecdotal sense I get is that this isn't, it hasn't gotten massive traction yet. I think people are still waiting to kind of figure it out and figure out where it fits in their strategy.
I agree. I don't think the numbers are there yet, because Microsoft usually is very good about touting numbers when they're good and not touting numbers when they're not good. For example, there's a number in here on number of monthly active users for Teams, which is a big number. What is that number, Rich?
Wait, and now I'm looking at the article I wrote, and I was guessing before, but folks, I was spot on. 270 million monthly active users. That's as of January. So it's probably a bigger number now, but that I believe that's the most recent figure that they've gone public with. Before I forget quickly, thanks for pointing out, Rick. I breezed right over one of the Teams enhancements that Microsoft announced this week, and it is called Shared Channels, and it basically, like you said, it allows different Teams tenants basically to share channels. Could be very useful for channel pros working with their customers, and obviously it would be very useful for end users working with their business partners or their customers and so on. So that's worth knowing about too.
Long overdue feature, I would also say too. I bet, Rick, that's going to be really handy for a lot of different scenarios.
A lot, and I think back to what you said, Rich. It's working from me to customers, working across, even if you're doing a joint project with someone, it opens it up that way as well. A lot of different scenarios that opens an avenue for, which I think is a well needed feature, because now, and let's just say you have two teams, I'll just speak for myself, with two businesses with Renactus and MSP Unplugged, I can only have one tenant on my one tenant app on my computer. The other one, I have to go open up a private browse window just to get to the other one to do anything with. So this, for me, speaking selfishly, this is a great thing.
It's funny you're reminding me, because every year Microsoft sends a ton of Inspire-related stuff out to the media, before the show begins. And last year they decided to do that through Teams, and it's same problem, right? Like, we all have Teams accounts. We could not use that account to access this stuff. They gave us a login to the secure, and it was a giant pain in the neck to get out of one Teams client and get into the other so we could get all that stuff. They didn't actually use the shared channels functionality this year. At least I don't think that's what they were using to get it out this year. But that's another example of the kind of thing you can do now.
Very cool. Lots of other new stuff in here. I'm seeing the word Viva a lot more. That seems to be a brand that they're working on more, even though I think the original Viva has nothing to do with like an external user-facing tool, from what I understand. But there's Viva Goals. Did they talk about this? What is an employee goal setting and management tool? What does that mean?
And it's funny, if you work at Microsoft or used to work at Microsoft, exactly what this must be about, because it's all about goals. You go into the year with a very, at least in my day, this has probably evolved. You had this very defined set of goals and objectives that you committed to accomplishing by the end of the year, and your management was, evaluating your progress against that. This is basically a tool for that kind of a thing. So what are an employee's goals? And what is the progress against those goals, et cetera. And I'm not seeing it right now. Maybe you have it in front of you, Matt, but that's not out just yet. I think in about 10 days, August 1st or something, Viva Goals rolls out.
Yeah, I was just curious what it was, because I don't know what a goal management tool looks like. So interesting stuff. Well, lots here, folks. We're going to put links to this article and the other news article. We'll put that in the show notes page for episode 233. So if you're on your phone, you go to channelpronetwork.com, find the show sheet. You'll find links to all the stories that we're going to talk about that we can go and you can look. There's lots in here. There's lots of other links in here to go and learn a lot more, because there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. If you're on your phone, you can open up the description area. A lot of times the links will be in there. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe, hit the like, hit the bell, just press all the buttons on YouTube, and then things will happen. And follow along there. Leave a comment as well. Comments are good. Make sure you do that as well. But open to the description area on YouTube, and we put links to all of these articles in there for you, so you can read along as we discuss. Rick, anything else in this particular one you want to mention that kind of stood out as maybe of interest to you?
Well, I did want to point out the Azure that's going to be huge too. I think there's the big move now to getting servers off-prem, and, I'm 50-50 on that at this point still. So I think where necessary, we move them to the cloud, but there are some that I think that are necessary that need to stay on-prem. But I think it's a big deal, and that they're improving the process, and whatever the incentives are, that that always helps. But there's a place for it. So I didn't want to not mention it, because I do think for my industry that is important.
Yeah. So did they say what they're doing to make it easier to migrate servers into Azure? Because it just says that there's a program aimed at accelerating it, but is it hard to do? Or is it easier now?
Is that for me or Rich?
For you.
Oh, okay. Well, I've only done a few, right? So I told you to be, I am an old school corporate guy. So servers on-prem is what I like, but it has not been a struggle to do now. So I'm curious to know what the changes are, how it makes it simpler. I mean, anything they can do to make it simpler, I'm definitely for. As long as it doesn't require jumping through 70 hoops before you can get to the simple part, which sometimes happens. But I don't know what those changes are, but again, it's something I'll look forward to reading and exploring with and figuring out.
We'll have to wait and see what they did. But folks, go and check this out, and then we will learn more about that. Rich, but that's not all the Microsoft talk we have. That might be all the news, but we've got more to discuss, and that is the where, how, and why of Windows 365. Tell us about this.
Yeah. So, and this kind of follows up perfectly on what we were just talking about with respect to Windows 365. This is an article that appeared in the July issue of ChannelPro, and it goes right to the point we were making before, that people are still in that let's figure it out kind of a stage, even though the July issue came out a year after the product came out. This is kind of 101 level content, in the sense that it's a really good article. It's written by a guy named Sam Greengard, a side that nobody but me cares about. ChannelPro is ever so slightly older than 15 years, a little bit more than 15 years old this year. Sam has been writing for us as a freelancer pretty much all that time. This is his latest contribution, and it was a really good job on Windows 365, and really kind of structuring how to sort of think about where this could be really useful and where maybe it wouldn't be. We know, he quotes some data from Gartner. We know 72% of business leaders plan to expand investments in desktop as a service going forward. The market for the desktop as a service is going to grow nearly 27% year over year in 2022 alone. So this is something, it's a technology that's picking up. It is not for every organization, but there are advantages that it offers that more and more businesses, I think, are catching on to. And Rick kind of, spoke to some of those before. So if you've got remote workers, you've got home-based workers, if you have contract workers, there are scenarios there where maybe you temporarily need to give somebody a PC, but you don't necessarily want to give them one that they're going to have indefinitely. Or you want, because one of the great things about a Windows 365 cloud PC is it's 100% delivered through the cloud. So if you are running it on a laptop at home, and then in the afternoon you go into the office for some meetings and you're using a desktop instead, everything follows you exactly in the same state, and whatever you had open or were working on at home is going to be waiting for you exactly as you left it when you switch devices and so on. So in a hybrid work world, a work from anywhere kind of world, there's a lot of convenience to that. There are obvious security advantages and management advantages in terms of being able to configure PCs consistently across users and maintain the consistency of that configuration, again, across devices for one user. Doesn't matter if you're on your laptop or your desktop at the office, everything's going to be the same. There are potentially some efficiency, some savings efficiency. So with Windows 365, you can purchase a pool of licenses basically and kind of dole them out and take them back and move them around. So instead of that Windows license being fused to a device, you can use it more or less anywhere that you need to. And if somebody leaves the company, you get their license back and you can apply that someplace else. On the other hand, if you support users who do high performance computing, or they spend a lot of time working with high-end graphics or doing video editing, the reason why Windows 365 would not be a great fit for me is because this is an all online delivery platform, which means if I'm on a plane somewhere, I can't get to my Windows 365 desktop. So this is still something that, this is going to be appropriate for people who are, connected online 99% of the time. But if that's not the case, this maybe won't be a solution. And then you got to think a little bit too about network capacity and bandwidth, and how good is the connectivity that your customers have, both at home and in the office. So, a lot of different variables to consider, a lot of pluses and minuses. It's definitely something that if you haven't been thinking about, you should be, because this is a core part of the Microsoft cloud now, and it's potentially another way to make some money with Microsoft. But this article will help you think about where that might and might not make sense.
So, this is a really, really great primer. If you're not familiar with Windows 365, I really encourage you to go and read through this, because it really does give you a good one-on-one view of what it is, how it works. I have one question about that I didn't understand, and that is the pricing for Windows 365. I thought it was a kind of a flat rate. Are you also metered like for usage as well? Or is it just one flat rate per desktop?
My understanding is it's a flat rate per desktop, that this is actually not a consumption-based cloud product.
Okay, that would make it far more, because I was going to say that's an expensive proposition if you're also paid for whatever cycles that you would use. Like, ooh. I also noticed too that like when you were talking there and you said like, you could have your laptop and then you could remote into this other laptop. I'm like, hey, you know what? This works out well for Microsoft, because they're selling like 2 Windows licenses. You're using Windows to connect to Windows. Isn't that interesting? Cool stuff. So Rick, you said you're dabbling in Windows 365, or you're looking at desktop as a service. What's kind of your thoughts on this?
We're looking, and I think a lot of it, Rich made, a lot of Rich's points are very valid. One of the things we think about, though, and this is a good point that I didn't think about earlier, is the security factor of this. When there was this rush when COVID hit, and there was this rush to work from home, the first thing clients want to say, my employee has a laptop, so let them use that to VPN, or let them use that to remote in. And my answer is, you have no idea what's on that laptop to let them into your network. So it should be a company-owned laptop that we configure, that's that they use, and that's all they use it for. So this, I think, serves that purpose as well. You're using then they can use their own laptop to log into this laptop, which actually goes to do the work, or into this desktop, or whatever you want to call it, this virtual machine, to do the work. So that handles part of the security, because you configure that what they're going into. You get to configure that, and you can feel a little more secure about what's coming in and what's going out. So that is also a very big factor, because we have to always think about that. It's not as easy as just, my secretary Sally has a computer at home, so just let her log in, because that comes with a lot of security risk as well. But as I say, there are some places that this, I think, may fit well into, and it is definitely worth the exploration to see where you could apply it.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting stuff. So in your lookings at this, do you agree with some of the cases that Rich has kind of laid out on where it makes sense and where it doesn't make sense, or do you think that there's some other cases where it doesn't, or even some cases where it makes more sense than anything else?
Well, it definitely makes more sense if you look at it from a cost standpoint. If you have temporary workers, contractors, things along, it definitely makes sense that rather than having to get a laptop to deploy to have them use, you create it, give them credentials to get in, and they can do it. When they're done, you can turn it off, delete it, whatever you do to not allow them to have access to it anymore. So that's definitely a positive for this, and it's definitely a scenario where it would be done. Now, again, we'd have to think about, again, if you're doing video editing, anything heavy graphics, things like that, as Rich said, this is not going to be a solution for you. But I think it in the grand scheme of things, depending on the scenario, it may be both a cost advantage and a convenience advantage for a company to do.
That would kind of require that if you're going to provision one of these for, say, a remote worker, that would require them to have some kind of device on the other end. So is that lean into, you're going to bring your own device, but we're giving you access to the desktop in the cloud? Does that fit? Does that make sense?
Right, that makes sense. See, and this was the whole thing. The whole scary part about BYOD is you don't have control of that device, right? That is their device. We technically shouldn't be allowed to add any security or whatever, because that is their device. So that is the scary part. So now this, and then again, we have to see how the schema works, but this eliminates that worry, because where they're going is now in a secured environment. So they're in that environment now, and that risk, I guess, is minimized.
Yeah. Very interesting stuff. Rich, anything else to add on Windows 365 before we move on?
No, just we'll link to Sam's story in the show notes, and I do encourage folks to check it out.
Agreed. Yeah, it's a good read. It teaches a lot if you're interested in it. So, Rich, we got one more story that we're going to touch on. That is the 2022 Business Notebook Primaries. Rich, why don't you set this up for us?
I'm going to set it up. You're going to be doing most of the talking on this one, but I can and will set it up. So some years back, I forget how many, but I was plotting out what was going to go in the July issue of the magazine, and I thought to myself, hey, here we are, sort of at the midpoint of the year. Maybe I'll ask Matt to do sort of a roundup of hardware products that have come out in the first 6 months of the year that he thinks are kind of cool and interesting, and that'll be good content for the magazine. And I asked Matt to do it, and he agreed. Now, if it was the other way around, if he had asked me to write some, well, let's set aside that I know nothing about hardware, but pretend I did, I would just write that article, right? Like I would just say, hey, here are 6 things that came out this, I think these are worth kind of calling attention to. Matt thought that's way too boring. And so he kind of, how can I present this so that it's less boring? And if I remember right, Matt, the first time you wrote this, you wrote it as if people were reading, or if they were watching a parade on TV, and the article was sort of the two hosts commenting on a parade of devices going by and saying all the goofy things that parade hosts do, and so on. And so you gave me exactly what I asked you for, but it was also actually a lot of fun. And we've been doing this article every July ever since. Every year, Matt sits down and tries to come up with something goofy, some goofy way to present this, pretty straightforward concept I came up with once upon a time. So Matt, what was your concept this year?
Yeah. So no, that first one was, I was given a title, I was given a title called The Hardware Hit Parade. And I'm like, okay, well, it's actually going to be a parade. And that was one of the more ridiculous ones that I think I've ever written. But since then, folks, there's a lot of good ones, and I put a lot of work into these and a lot of thought. So we went on Safari once. I think that was probably my favorite one so far, was the hardware Safari, where I came up with like technical, how like when you talk about animals like in a scientific way, it's like Abractus emesium or whatever, they have like those like family class names. Well, I came up with like all these class names for the hardware, and it was super funny. So there's been a whole bunch of these. I encourage you to go back and read them. They're a lot of fun, and so the hardware might be a little old, but it's interesting. But this year, we've got election primaries going on. So I thought, what, it is time for the major OS parties to have their primaries, to see which business notebook candidate was going to face off in the primary election. So what are our parties? Well, we have, I guess let's start with the different primary races, and we'll talk about the hardware that's in each one. But our first party is the Winneblican Party. And they've got, they've had, strong support among business voters, all over the definitely the biggest party, the Winneblicans of all those. And for those who are wondering, the Winneblican Party is those devices running Windows. So that's the big party. And we've got several you don't want me to talk about all of these, do you? Or do you want me to just kind of highlight a couple of them?
Yeah, maybe your favorites of the favorites.
Yeah, so well, the Winneblicans are definitely the biggest one, and so there's a lot of competition there, a lot of candidates vying for the vote. I will talk about the first two that I picked, and the first one, who looks like is doing really well in the polls, is it's a 13-inch device from Dell, the new Dell Latitude 9330. It's a 2-in-1 form factor, 1610 Infinity Edge display, really nice display. 12th gen core, Wi-Fi 6E. It's got a whole bunch of like really cool things that it's campaigning on, like this intelligent privacy kind of feature where if it detects someone looking over your shoulder, it will actually like blank out the screen as a security feature, which is like really neat. It's got an electrical mechanical webcam shutter to lock out those webcam snoopers, all kinds of cool stuff that it's showing off, and campaigning to not only make you productive but also safe. So that's a good message in 2022. Good and safe. The other one that I'll point out, and you got to pardon me, folks, when they appear in the magazine, I actually wrote them long ago, so I got to think back to what we have here. There was a really cool, this one is, I'm going to talk about it just because it's really neat, but I put in the Asus ZenBook Pro 16X OLED. Rick, are you kind of a hardware guy? Do you like hardware?
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. Okay, so this is a candidate that is really standing out on the trail because it's just unique and different, and it's got a whole different message, and that message is compromise isn't going to win. So this thing's got everything. It's decked out to the hilt. 12th gen Core i9, NVIDIA RTX 3060 GPU, 32 gigs of memory. It's, they can different configs, but this is like kind of the decked out one. It's got a killer 4K display, 1610 display. But the other thing that was really cool, or I don't know if you look at the picture, but when you open it up, like the keyboard has the system to automatically auto tilt the keyboard 7 degrees to a comfortable typing angle, but that also helps with the cooling as well. So that's part of the cooling system to kind of like open that up to allow for more airflow. Super cool. I know where my vote's going, and that is to the Asus ZenBook 16. But the Winneblicans are not the only ones having their primaries, Rick. Nope. There are other primary races happening, and of course, the Demochrome Party is rallying around some of their candidates. And the Demochromes, those are the laptops that are running Google Chrome OS. And there we have a couple of them there to talk about. There's the HP Elite Dragonfly 13.5-inch Chromebook. This is an interesting one because it is, when you think Chrome OS, what do you normally think? Rick, if I would say Chrome OS laptop, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
I was going to say crap, but no, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry.
Crap and cheap. Yes, crap and cheap.
Yeah.
This is not crap and cheap. In fact, this thing, to get the customizable model, is ridiculously expensive. It's way overpriced, but hey, that's okay. But the 13-inch, 35-inch Chromebook, the HP is saying, you know what? If we're going to do a Chromebook, and it's going to be for like an executive level, because Chrome OS is kind of working its way into businesses more and more. It started education, but those, it's a long-term play. You get them when they're in school, and then when they get out of school, that's what they're used to. So it's paying off, and you're starting to see more and more of these in businesses. But this is a really nice one. I think it's kind of expensive personally, but it's campaigning on a Core i3, 8 gig of RAM. You can get it up to an i7 with 32 gigs of memory if you go to the customizable one. 1920 by 1280 display, IPS LCD display, backlit keyboard, looks nice. That base version that they sell is like $1150. Customizable one, base price is $2165. Now, would you, Rick, would you vote for a notebook that's 2,000 or Chrome OS notebook that's $2,000?
Not from the history I have with Chrome, no way.
Not sure that I would either. Not sure if that's going to get my vote. But if you can't vote for the ultra premium, the Lenovo's got you. They've got a new ThinkPad C14 enterprise-based Chromebook that looks like. Are you ready for this, Rick? It looks like a ThinkPad. Yay! Looks just like one. If you open this one up, you would think, hey, that's a Windows ThinkPad. It's not. This one is a ThinkPad. It's running Chrome OS. Lots of nice features. It's got the little track point nub. It's got all the stuff in there. It can be customized to all kinds of hardware, but the base price is a lot more reasonable. It starts at $629, which I think for a base Chrome book is probably, for a ThinkPad build quality, I think that's a little bit more in the realm of reasonable. So if you're voting in the Demochrome primary, those are the two candidates that are vying for your vote. Go check them out. Of course, that's not all. There are two other parties that we got to get to, Rick. The Green Apple Party is another party there, but that shouldn't surprise you that the candidate of the Green Apple Party, which of course is the Mac OS, the party of Mac OS. Well, there's only one candidate to vote for because it's Apple and they're only going to give you one candidate. So you can either vote for the MacBook Pro, or the MacBook Pro. That is all you get to vote for. And the way that works in the Green Apple Party is the way they say it should be done is the way it is. And if you want to vote for that, then go ahead. And of course, the MacBook Pro has got, it's they're all silver. I know they have one that's called Space Gray, but really that's just dark silver when you look at it. But they got they're not Intel based. They have their M1 Pro, M1 Max. They're very, very fast. They've got beautiful screens. They're also really, really expensive. There's the one. So if you're going to go vote for a notebook in the Green Apple Party, there is one. There is the MacBook Pro. And of course, let's not forget the Linitarian Party, Rick. That is the party of Linux. And I know that they had a big convention where Linitarian servers and a few desktops from far and wide were all packed in a convention hall into the ballroom to see the business notebook that could win the general election. And not one showed up. So there is not one to vote for, and there probably never will be. So no candidate for the Linitarians in the notebook primary, but who knows, maybe next year. So Rich, that is the 22 business notebook primaries. There are more in here, folks, if you want to go check out. There's a lot of good hardware to go and look at and see. And of course, you can also vote if you go to channelpronetwork.com/vote2022. You can cast your vote in the primaries for the notebooks that you think should square off in the general election this fall. Rich, back to you.
So a few quick little questions that popped into my head as you were talking there. So first of all, on the Asus device, what's the display size there?
That is a 16-inch, so big screen.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I don't know what the weight is on that, but that's interesting. Now, obviously, in any kind of election situation, we at ChannelPro strongly discourage corruption. But if I was to attempt to pay off the candidates on the Dell and the Asus, what are those running roughly?
A lot. That Asus was really, especially if you get it decked out, it was really, really expensive. I'm trying to remember if I put the pricing in here for it. I did not, but I will look it up real quick. It was a lot though. But this thing is so decked out. It's crazy. Given
the specs, I would imagine it's expensive.
Yeah, it's probably somewhere. It's going to be in the $3,000 to $4,000 range.
Oh wow. Yeah. Okay. And then the last thing I'll note, because just earlier, it was either earlier this week or last week, it's all a blur. I was reading a review of the new MacBook Air, which I think is one of their. So when you were finishing this up, the MacBooks were pretty much still on the M1 processor. I think they're moving on to M2 as we speak, basically. And I was just reading about the new MacBook Air, which was intriguing to me because I was intrigued in the M1 devices when they came out, but it still looked to me like too heavy. And but the new MacBook Air is 2.7 pounds. They finally cracked the 3-pound barrier there. You know, I assume the battery life and the performance are kind of amazing. That might be the first Mac that actually, and I'm probably 2 years away from buying a new laptop, so none of this is really relevant. But if I was buying today, that one might get my attention.
Yeah, that one was announced right after I submitted the story for this one, but they don't. You know, Apple's kind of weird because they don't really target that one kind of towards businesses. I know a lot of business users will end up with those, but the ones that they really target towards business is the Pro line, and that's basically 2 different screen sizes, and they're virtually the same. But yeah, we'll see a refresh of the MacBook Pros. I would be surprised if it wasn't sometime this year where they'll put the new M2 stuff in it. But I don't think they've released because they have like the M2 and they have like the M or the M1 and the M1 Max. And I don't think they have an M2 Max yet. And so maybe that's what they're waiting for on that. But I don't follow the Apple stuff quite as much because I'm more a Windows guy. So I tend to follow those a little bit more. But yeah, there's lots of those. So Rick, what would you vote for?
Well, if I'm not spending my money, if I'm spending yours, I'm getting the Asus.
They have some really cool laptops. I don't know if you've gone and looked at some of the ones that they've got, but they have some really, really neat designs and some that are also really, really expensive, like that one. But so, Rich, of the candidates, which are you voting for?
Good question. I think that Dell, of those candidates, the Dell would probably be the one that I would gravitate towards. Top of the line Latitude. That would probably make me happiest.
It looks nice and thin. It looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, folks, who would you vote for? Go to the article, go to the show sheet, and then right at the end there's a link. You can go and vote, and you can kind of see what other people are voting for too. So go cast your vote, and unlike the real primaries that are happening, you can actually vote in every primary, not just one. So go and have fun with that. So, Rich, we will move on. So, Rich, we don't have any more stories, do we? We got an interview we got to get to.
Let's do that.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by MJ Patton, the founder and CEO of Alveo. We're going to be talking about service portfolio management and go-to-market strategies for MSPs. It is an awesome interview. She is incredibly smart, and she's going to blow your mind with stuff that you probably have not thought about before. Definitely stick around. We will be right back. Are you an MSP who is recommending Dell hardware to your end users? If so, then you'll want to check out the Dell Expert Network. The new Dell Expert Network program is a rewards and incentives program designed for service-focused MSPs who are supporting the small business market. This program is designed to deliver value and save time for MSPs who are recommending their end users to purchase Dell hardware. Currently, Dell Expert Network customers get an additional 3% back in Dell rewards when they buy Microsoft servers. Check out the Dell Expert Network today. And welcome back to part 2 of this episode of ChannelPro Weekly. You know, MSPs pride themselves on the value they provide customers via great service delivery, customer support, and a variety of offerings. However, ChannelPros often lose sight of their portfolio strategy, if they happen to have one at all, which can have costly consequences. What should you do? Well, MJ Patton, founder and CEO of Alveo, knows and is here to tell you. Welcome, MJ.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you on. Very excited that you're here. Before we kind of get diving into the topic, though, I'd love if you take a few minutes and tell us a little bit more about you and a little bit more about Alveo.
Yeah, sure. So I have been in the channel for over a decade now. I have worked primarily in marketing for essentially every type of channel company. So started out at a service provider, then I went to a VAR, worked at Insight running their vertical marketing. I went into consulting, worked at Tech Data and ran their global marketing for their services organization for a few years. And now I work with companies, small to large companies, on their go-to-market strategy, but we're all channel focused. Alveo actually stands for channel in Latin. That's our boring origin story, is we couldn't figure out how to name our company. So we're like, what's Latin for channel? So we're dedicated. But that's where I've been spending my time. I love the channel. These are my people. And yeah, that's a little bit about myself. And Alveo is a go-to-market strategy firm. like I said, we focus in on the channel, helping companies accelerate their path to sustainable and scalable revenue growth.
Wow. So you've seen the vendor side, you've seen the distributor side, you've seen all different facets of the channel. What has been like your favorite so far?
Oh man, that's a difficult question. I will say that I enjoy service providers. That is my jam, I would say. Everything else, I think it is a really unique experience to have seen all of those different components of the channel and see how they all function together, and all of the channel conflict that can happen and all of the different nomenclature you should have and the types of relationships, etc. So I do find that extremely unique, but I do love services companies. So the MSPs, the IT service providers, I think what's happening there and in that space is fascinating. I think there's a lot of great opportunity ahead of us. So that's probably where I enjoy it the most. Cool. I like technical people. That's my thing.
That's a rare thing. A lot of people don't like technical people because they're very technical, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
So what kind of things do you do outside of service delivery and all of these different kind of companies that you've been involved with in the channel?
Outside of that, well, you mean on a personal note?
Sure. Like, yeah. What kind of things do you like to do for fun?
Well, I have a 2-year-old, so that's essentially all of my time. So there's that. And then obviously my firm, it's a startup. We've been doing this officially in this capacity for the past 2 years. And then I also am the chapter head for Pavilion. That is a private membership for high growth professionals. So I manage that community here in Phoenix. And then, I co-chair the consulting community for it. And in addition to that, I'm also part of the executive council for CompTIA for North America. So that's where my time is being spent, is being in the community as well as, spending time with family and friends.
So walk me through this thinking process here. So you just had a baby, and at the same time, you're like, hey, I got a 2-year-old. Now it's time to do a startup.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Some people think I'm crazy. And at the same time, my husband also started a company. So both of us have startups and have a 2-year-old. So it's fun.
I don't even know how that's possible. I'm trying to think back to the days when my kids were that little and I didn't have time to even think, let alone start a company.
Well, I was just recently talking to Juan Fernandez, which there's several people who know him. And I was talking to him about this. And he was hearing my son vacuuming in the background. And he's like, how old is your son? And I'm like, he's 2. And he realized how OCD and type A I am. And yes, my son knows how to vacuum. And if I give him a rag, he starts cleaning. It's not very good, but he does help at home. And it's a tight ship in the house. It's the only way we can survive. So yeah.
I need to confer with you on parenting advice because I have a 13-year-old and an 11-year-old, and I can't get them to vacuum even at that age. So
I was thinking the same thing.
That's awesome. So, well, rather than diving more into that, Rich, I know we're going to be talking a little bit about service delivery and customer support. Why don't you, because there's an article that goes along with this. So why don't you kind of set up how this came to be?
Yeah, well, I'll go all the way back. I met MJ for the first time at a conference last November. And she introduced herself to me and said she'd be interested in writing for us, which was okay with me. We're always interested in having experts like her contribute to the magazine. And we talked a little bit about what she might write about. And just on the spot, she said, well, what if I write about service portfolio management? And in the back of my head, I'm thinking, I don't even know what that is. Yes, write about that, because it's probably something that our audience should know about. And in March, we published her column on service portfolio management. So let's I didn't know what it was until I read your piece. There are probably some people in the audience here who could use a little help too. So define service portfolio management for folks.
Sure. So to give everyone kind of an understanding of what that role entails, in a typical product company, okay, you usually have a product manager who manages the development of that product. So they look at the customer needs, they look at the competitive landscape, they work with the product engineers, with marketing, with sales, etc. And they essentially have a roadmap for what does that product look like from the time we launch it all the way through its life cycle. Now, if you think about services, on the other hand, do we have that type of function? We don't. Usually what happens is that there's a person who's delivering a service and they are doing the operational components of that service. And as that service evolves, it is just looked at from an operational standpoint. I really doubt that there's organizations, except for, I know this happens at companies like an IBM and these large enterprises, but for smaller service providers, there's no one who's looking at a service and saying, okay, this service, how is it going to evolve? What are the investments we have to put in place in order to make sure that this service continues to deliver on its promise to our customers, that it is meeting their expectations as things continue to evolve? And how do we continue to invest in that? What does that roadmap look like? How should the technologies be in place to support those services, etc.? Instead, we have the people who are delivering the services also trying to manage the services, and they don't have that skill set of a product manager. So that is something that I'm trying to bring more awareness about, is the fact that we do need this type of role and this type of function, because we're missing really important inputs for service delivery, as well as sales, for marketing, for customer success.
One of the things I like a lot about the services you offer, and even just the way you kind of talk about them on your website, is there's a lot of focus on strategy and strategic thinking, which I think if you're caught up in the day-to-day, it's hard for people to do. So in this context, talk a little bit about what it means to have a portfolio strategy and why the folks in our audience should have one.
Sure. So it all comes back to organizational business strategy, right? You cannot steer a ship if you don't know where you're going at the end of the day, right? So the purpose of having a portfolio strategy is making sure that your portfolio of services, and I know there's in service companies, it could be a combination. There's the services component, but there's also the technology or the products that may be sold through as well, right? So it's that entire portfolio, and trying to make sure that it is aligned to the requirements of your customers, but it's also aligned to what are your core competencies? What are you really good at? And the reason why this is needed is because if you don't focus in on your strategy, if you do not know the value that you're creating in the market, you can actually create additional burden on the rest of your organization. And what do I mean by that? I mean, for example, if you have multiple services where it's a disjointed portfolio, for example, you do networking, but then you added on marketing services because one of your clients asked you to do that, and you just have this hodgepodge of different services, you are now requiring your sales team to figure out, how do I sell this SKU list of services? You're also asking marketing to try to figure out how to emphasize the value of this entire portfolio. If you are going after everyone, for example, then what events do you go to, right? Because you can't be at all of the events. You only have so much budget, right? Where do you spend your money on advertising? What type of content do you create? What type of problems are you solving for? You can't get to those answers because you have too much of everything. But if you're very particular of like, this is our portfolio, this is what we're good at, this is where our customers are the happiest, where we have the longest, the most customer satisfaction, where our clients continue to stay with us day and day, time and time again, because we're so good at this. And then from there, you concentrate your sales and marketing efforts, you win faster, your sales team onboards quicker, your conversions start to increase. There's all of these additional impacts that happen within the organization. And then frankly, your services team is extremely happy because they're not trying to put together an SOW and, you know, wasting their time doing that when they should be thinking about how do I service the customer and give a great experience, right?
So I absolutely want to get into the work of service portfolio management with you in just a moment, but there's a section of the article you contributed where you talk a little bit about the attributes to look for if you are hiring for a service portfolio manager. Here are some of the things to look for, and I would kind of love for you to recap that a little bit, keeping in mind that a lot of the folks in the audience here, you know, they are running companies that are probably too small to have somebody in that role on a dedicated basis, so they'll be doing it themselves. What, you know, what are the characteristics, the qualities, the attributes that need to go into being a good service portfolio manager?
To be honest, it is going to be difficult to find someone with this expertise specifically for services. And it's because, like I said, this has been a lack within an organization. We're seeing more and more of it. We tried to implement this type of function when I was actually at Tech Data, and it was very difficult to find anyone. So what we ended up doing is we hired people with product management and product marketing backgrounds. And we hired them into that role. And then we had to teach them the differences between a product versus a service. So there are some, you know, obviously some differences of how you should be managing a service, and however, they had the other types of capabilities. So they knew, you know, the market research and the implications. They knew how to do a go-to-market strategy. They knew the interactions between sales and marketing, et cetera. They knew, you know, the details when it came to the competitive analysis, et cetera. That's the type of skill set that is honed in by a product manager or someone in product marketing. And like I said, that's why I would lean towards those type of resources and then help them understand services.
And then, I mean, is there a mindset that somebody, you know, a business owner at an MSP or solution provider who, you know, I'm going to be the service portfolio manager, et cetera. Is there a certain set of outlook skills? Is it, you know, can you teach yourself basically some of what you were just talking about?
Well, you definitely can teach it. There is an institute that I love. I actually got certified with them. It's the Pragmatic Marketing Institute, and they actually train on this. So there's certifications you can get into it. There's several other certifications. So if it's something that you're interested in and you're like, I want to know this, there's definitely, you know, that avenue. What I would say, a really important characteristic of someone in this role is the collaborative nature of that person. This role does not own a P&L. They should be facilitating discussions across sales, marketing, delivery. They should be able to guide the entire team to work together in a very collaborative way. They need to have very strong communication skills. That is because they have to keep everyone fully aligned. You know, one of the things my partner likes to say is that a portfolio manager doesn't own anything, but is responsible for everything. Okay, so they don't own the execution, but they are responsible for keeping the ship steered a certain direction.
So let's talk about that, because it feels like there are sort of two big buckets of activities here. One of which is maybe a one-time or occasional exercise, one of which is more ongoing. And so, I mean, like, you know, based on what you're talking about, you've got to have a strategy basically in order to manage the execution of that strategy. So it feels like step one is going to be establishing what the portfolio strategy is. And then there's work after that, I assume, that's more like executing on the strategy, maintaining the strategy, and so on. So, I mean, talk a little bit about, you know, what from a startup standpoint and an ongoing standpoint, what that function kind of looks like on a day-to-day basis.
So do you mean from a portfolio management standpoint as it progresses?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So for a startup, I would say you can't know everything and you shouldn't be specific. The reason for that is because you're trying to establish a service market fit. Okay. Or, you know, in the product world, it's product market fit. You're trying to see, will people pay for your services? So in that case, you can't be too specific. You should know, here's the market I want to go after, but it should be generic terms. You should know, you know, here are the type of people I want to go after. It should be very generic. After you have established that people are going to pay for your services, you then are supposed to transition into what I call the repeatable stage of maturity. During that stage, what you end up doing is you start to document, you start to solidify what is your strategy, where should you focus, and it is based off of what you learned during that first stage, which I also call the opportunistic stage. Okay, that is where you are out there. You're seeing what you're going to win, what you're going to lose, etc. But it's taking all of that information and being very intentional about it and applying that for the repeatable stage. Only after you document it and you're very specific of here's exactly where we win, here's exactly the type of strategy we should set forward. This is what our messaging should be. Here's what our portfolio should be. When you standardize all of that, only at that point should you then invest more in infrastructure. So this is where you start to hire more people, you start to pay more for technology and so forth. That is then going into the scaling stage of an organization. A lot of people want to skip, they want to go from opportunistic to, okay, let's just hire a bunch of people and let's go, you know, invest in all these tools. And that is the wrong thing to do, because all of those investments are now going to fall short of execution because you didn't have that documentation, you didn't have the process, you didn't have things written down of here's actually what we are going to do. Okay. So that's exactly how the maturity of even service portfolio management happens. In that first stage, you're doing ad hoc projects. It's whatever anyone is asking for. But then when you get to the repeatable stage, you have a standardized services catalog. And it's very clear. Here's what we do. Here's the value that it creates. Here's how we can end up bundling this as a solution. Your pricing is figured out. You know how to scope it. It is so that way you're more consistent. And then you move on to scaling that out.
So, I mean, one of the things I know you do with your clients is go-to-market strategy consulting. I mean, is that, you know, that sort of startup phase that you were just talking about there, is that essentially go-to-market strategy? So
it's not. Well, it depends on where they are in the stage. So usually when it's a startup, usually we think about how do we get you in front of more people because you need more data. Okay, so we will actually suggest go and do you know, AdWords and go and do BDRs, you know, business development services. Collect all that information, get yourself out there, get wins, get losses, etc. Because then when you have that, now you can make more decisions of going in and refining your go-to-market strategy. Okay, so that's where we end up helping, is we take the information that you've collected and now we refine it to here's where you should now focus. So that way you decrease your cost of acquisition, you start to increase your customer lifetime value, you start to increase, you know, make sure that you have everything that's required when you're onboarding your sales and marketing teams. You make sure that you start to operate more efficiently as well with services, etc. So yeah, that's what I would say. It's really when you're about to get to scale and you want to start hiring sales and marketing, that's when you should start working on the go-to-market strategy.
So I'd love to get Rick's take on this too. Rick, was that kind of your experience when you were starting out and growing, or were you a little bit more, execute, go for it without
it was just it was actually going to be my question, because I would just jump out the window. It looks great, let's just do it. And then you get caught in this space somewhere, you're like, oh God, I'm kind of lost, or I don't know what I'm doing, or this is not what I thought. And my question, MJ, was going to be, has there been times, because again, I'm that guy, you tell me, oh, I think I know it all. I think I know, so I'm going to go and just go do it. Are there times where you have to tell people, hey, this is not right at the time, or you're not equipped for this, or you're not ready? Just basically
100%.
saying no.
100%. That's the hardest part, is staying focused. There are so many times I have a client, and usually I don't work with complete startups, but in this case, I made an exception. And time again, we'll get on calls and they will bring up another tactic. Well, we should go do this and we should go do that. And I bring them back to the business strategy and where the focus is. And I ask, how does this align to this? And if you do this, you have to deprioritize something else. So how is that going to function? So then we actually bring out a prioritization matrix and we put this of, where should this fit and should we focus on it or not? Because it will distract. You really need to make sure that you aren't distracting yourself with all of the noise that's going on. There are certain steps that have to happen for you to get to something. So for example, account-based marketing, that is a big buzzword and everyone's like, we should do account-based marketing. That takes time to get to actual account-based marketing. You have to have a concrete content strategy in place in order to get there. So that may be your North Star of, I want to get to that stage, but you have to start small. You start to crawl, then you walk, then you run. And many times I tell clients, listen, do not disperse your resources. Start here, make sure you do really well right here, and then you move on and you add on to it. I had another MSP that I was working with, and they were saying that none of their marketing was very effective. And they're like, we wasted $100,000 just doing all of this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but what are you doing? And they're like, well, we're going to events and we're doing advertising, we're doing this. And I'm like, and how many people do you have to support that? And they said, one person. Like, do you realize how much work that requires for one person, and to do that well? Why don't you start with events? Make sure your events go really well, that when you invest in an event, you know how many leads you're going to get, you know how many opportunities you're going to get, etc. Concentrate there. And then when that is rocking and rolling, then you add on advertising, then you add on social. That, like, take it step by step. There's no reason why you should be doing everything, but do something really well and make sure it's adding revenue.
So what that kind of gets to is something else I kind of wanted to get into with you, which is just the idea that where you need to think strategically, where you need to manage strategically is going to evolve, obviously, as your company grows, as you become more mature in terms of what you're doing. I mean, is it possible to kind of map out what that journey sort of looks like at different stages of a company's evolution, in terms of what is really important when the company is young, and then what you can kind of build towards once you've gotten to you're north of $1 million a year, or 2-3 million a year, and now you've got a bigger team, et cetera?
Well, I wish it were, one size fits all, but with go-to-market, it's not. It's unique to your company and to your customer. Okay, so this is one of the things that really annoys me right now in the space. Everyone's talking about all of these strategies, and you should do this and you should do that, and they paint this picture that if you just implement this, this is going to work and it's going to be your magic pill. And it doesn't work that way. What ends up happening is, for example, when we go into an organization and we start to uncover everything and, what is their core competency and why do they win and who are they going after and really what kind of company should they be working with, and like to solidify that go to market, each one is unique, and each thing that they need to do as the next step is going to be tweaked, because they have different internal resources, they have a different past, right? And then they have different types of clients. There's a reason why there's so much opportunity in the market, and it's really about getting focused about finding the customers that are the right customers for you. Because if you find those right customers, it means they will be happier, you will be happier, and you'll just want to get more of those. It makes everyone's life easier. And if they're the wrong customers, that's okay. There's another guy who does the same thing, but they're the better fit for you for X, Y, and Z reason. Okay, it's kind of like when you're dating, right? Because there's plenty of people out there in the world, but there's only my husband for me, right? Like, he's the right fit for me. So it's kind of the same thing here when it comes to go-to-market strategy and finding the right person or the right client. You're trying to hone in on that.
This is maybe more of a tactical question than a strategic one, but I know, as we've been talking about advertising and events and so on, there are probably people in the audience who are really curious to get your experience take on these different tactics, what tends to work better as a starting point. So you mentioned a client that you advised, let's just get focused on events and let's just get really good at events. You've got one person, go all in on events, and then we can kind of see what happens there. Are there particular lead generation marketing techniques that tend to be a better starting point for a channel pro out there who's trying to get more focused and disciplined and effective at how they attract new customers?
Yeah, so there's different models of go-to-market, depending on multiple factors. Like, for example, the industry that you're in, this deal size that you have, there's different types of motion. If it's also like a B2C kind of solution versus a B2B solution, or if you're going through the channel and then it's like a tiered approach, etc. So there's, and because of that, the tactics are different. When, for example, if you are doing smaller size deals, okay, so let's say it's sub $5,000 annual contract value. Okay, these are really small deals. They are going to have something that's like a product-led growth model. It's very heavily focused on content. It is about inbound. You're going to have less salespeople in that case because you're trying to get more visibility. That's how those type of buyers end up consuming information, making their purchases. It's very transactional versus something where it's a very large deal size, like something that's over $100,000, right? Those type of deals, they have longer sales cycles. They need more one-on-one interaction. So you want to be in high touch type of scenarios, right? So this is where account-based marketing makes sense. This is where you have a field sales team that is out there talking to someone. This is where events are really great if you're doing thought leadership on the stage, because those are type of opportunities that require that high touch relationship built process. So it all differs, and it all has to come down to what customer are you going after? How do they buy and look at solutions? What is the size of your solution that you're selling? And from there, then you pick the correct go-to-market model to implement there. I wish I could give such an easy answer, but it's complicated.
It is, and I think we only have time, I think, for one more question. Rick, did you have anything you want to add?
Well, I was just listening, and now I'm thinking of all of the different. I don't want to say it wrong. The marketing gurus will tell you do it this way, and it'll work because it works for everyone else. And your approach is unique. It's I'm going to say probably the right way is You have to know who you're targeting, what you're targeting. And I just think it's a refreshing way to hear it, because again, I don't particularly want to, I'm not dispelling anyone else's way of doing it. It's a refreshing way to hear it approached, as opposed to, hey, this has been a proven strategy, just do it and it'll work. And it sometimes doesn't. And, it's frustrating. I can just say, as someone who's been doing this for a while, the approach has always been, try to find the person that has the most knowledge and follow their example, put your little spin on it and see if it works. And sometimes it doesn't. And it's extremely frustrating.
It's extremely frustrating, but here's, I go back to the point I made earlier. Everything is a learning. So even though you failed, that just taught you about where you should focus, right? So this is the reason why for a lot of startups, when they're in that opportunistic stage, I say, go do those programs. Go figure out as much as you can, because then we can look at that information and we could see, where did you win? Where did you lose? Why? And then we take that and we apply that. We make you so much better. I think that's where a lot of companies, they don't do that. They do these things, they end up getting frustrated, they get demotivated, right? Especially if it doesn't work out. But then they don't apply any of those learnings to take them to the next level. And I think if you at every moment, even a horrible moment, is a learning opportunity. And if you have that mindset with those type of tactics, take that into consideration. Yeah, it failed, but we learned a lot from it. Now we know we're not going to play in this space because it's not worth our time. That's a win.
Okay. The interesting thing, it's like a business maturity discussion almost, but it's requiring a lot more thought and a lot more business maturity up front in the process than what you would normally end up doing much further down the road, right?
Yeah, exactly. This all comes into stages. This is a reason why we developed a maturity model to help companies see the entire go-to-market as a whole. So sales, marketing, delivery together, and making sure, is that maturing at the same rate? And also, are they taking those things into consideration? Have they gone through this stage? And now can we apply those learnings to the next stage? And then if we see a part of the organization hasn't matured, going back there and making sure we quickly mature it to catch up to everyone else.
Interesting. Rich, I think you had one more question you wanted to get in there.
No, I was just thinking about, it is a learning experience, but then sometimes that can make you gun shy, right? So then you run into the stage where you are, at first I was quick to jump out the window. Now I'm suffering from, paralysis by analysis, because I'm checking everything, double checking, and then you spend so much time doing it, you don't get anything done. So, what is maybe it's more of a mental thing than something you can help me with, but how do we get through that stage to move to the, yes, learn from your mistake and move on, but be a little more smarter or cautious, or however you say it, or, just learning from that mistake and what not to do next?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And I would say that this is where the whole process piece really comes into play, is so that way you will feel more confident and you will feel better about trying things if you know it's going to be applied. It's very different if you're going to do something and then it's going to fail. It's like, great, we learned this, but now we're going to do something else. And now we're going to see if it's going to fail. And then you move on to something else. You don't see that being applied in your learnings. It's extremely important that you take that. And then how are you adjusting now based off of those learnings? How do you keep, so that way you see the progress and then look at, the change. Did it make an improvement? Did it not make an improvement, et cetera? That will make you want more data. Sometimes I'm like, and then sometimes I tell my clients, I'm like, hold on, you're not ready to do like A/B testing and all of this stuff. You're not big enough for that. I'm like, focus on figuring these things out first. But it gets exciting when you start to see all of that progress. It's kind of like when you start working out, right? The first few weeks, it's hard and you're doing this thing and you're like, is there really a difference? But then after a while, you start applying everything that you learn out during those workout regimes. and you start seeing this awesome like beach bod, and you're like, yeah, like I feel good. I want to keep doing it. It's the same thing when it comes to maturing your go-to-market.
And just in case anyone's confused, if you are standing in front of a window deciding to jump out of it, don't. That's my advice. And yes to more beach bods. We all need a little bit more of those as well. MJ, unfortunately, we are out of time. Amazing stuff. I think we could go another hour at least if we really wanted to. But we will absolutely have to have you back. It's a very, very interesting topic. You have a great insight into this, and I'm sure it's something that a lot of people want to learn more about. And if they wanted to learn more about it, where could they go? How could they get a hold of you?
Sure. So you can check out alveostrategy.com. That's ALVEO strategy.com. Or you can connect with me on LinkedIn, MJ Patents. I don't think there's another one that exists. I looked it up. It's a unique name. So you can find me there. I'd be happy to connect, answer any questions. I love meeting people and trying to help in any way possible.
And if anybody was interested in getting a beach bod, how do you think they should get around doing that? I'm kidding. That's a joke. Go to anytimefitness.com. No, okay. So awesome. Great having you on. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we get you back down the road. With that, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, Rick Smith will be with us on the other side. We're going to break down the show, have a little bit of fun and other things. You never know what might happen. That's why you want to stick around, because we will be right back. And welcome back to part 3 of this episode of ChannelPro Weekly. Rich, we had an awesome interview with MJ Patent. Amazing stuff. Anything you want to highlight? Anything that any cool takeaways?
Well, I mean, it was a great conversation. I love the emphasis on strategy and knowing where you're starting from, where you're trying to go before you start making decisions that may send you in the wrong direction. You know, it's an interesting thing that kind of popped into my head after the interview, is just that because we were talking with her about go-to-market, and earlier in the show we were talking about Microsoft, and you know, at Inspire every year, Microsoft is throwing the term go-to-market around a lot and encouraging partners to align their go-to-market with Microsoft's go-to-market. It would have been interesting to get MJ's take on the degree to which it is wise or unwise to do that. If you are a Microsoft partner or whatever, you know, you have a big relationship with some other vendor, to what degree should their strategy, their priorities, their go-to-market kind of influence what you're doing? So maybe that'll be a conversation for us to have with her somewhere down the road. For sure. And she really illustrated a lot of that and highlighted it, and she's super smart. Rick, do you have anything that you wanted to highlight from that interview, or anything that you took away from it?
Well, I took a lot away, and I think that, you know, she's very enthusiastic. She gave me a lot to think about, particularly on the whole process of using what you've learned to move forward, and just having a process and not just, you know, again, jumping out the window.
Well, you know, the interesting thing was like that they were talking about is like you have to have a strategy to execute your strategy. So it's like you have to have multiple layers of strategy going on all the time. And I don't really know a lot about service delivery, so I was kind of quiet, I know, for a lot of that interview, but I was just kind of listening and absorbing. And yeah, she gave me a lot to think about as well. And a lot if I was going to come up with any key takeaway, it's just that you can't just dive in anymore. You really do need to think things out in advance. And I talked a little bit about business maturity, but you have to have business maturity a lot earlier in the process now than you might have been able to, you know, 20 years ago, in order to successfully execute. And I think that was one of the points that she made that at least I was able to kind of take away amongst many. Plus, she's a delightful lady and a lot of fun. And I hope we get her back to talk more about that, because I'm sure everyone is going to want to learn more about advice on portfolio management and go-to-market strategies, because there's a lot of people in that boat. So Rich, start scheduler for down the road, okay? Absolutely. All right. So Rick, this is the part of the show where we kind of wrap up and we tend to have a little fun with our guests. So I'm sure you've listened to ChannelPro Weekly before, at least on and off, right?
Yes.
So we are going to play a little game with you that we call 5 questions. So now, for those who might be new to the show, the way this game works is Rich and I will ask you 5 questions. We'll go back and forth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guarantee you the questions will be off topic, ridiculous, and things to, no gotchas or nothing to embarrass you, but just things to learn about you. But the shtick is Rich and I are not allowed to write them in advance. We must come up with them on the fly. Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready.
He's like, oh my God, what am I getting myself into? All right, Rich, question number 1 to you.
I think I asked this exact same question when we had Paul Nebb on the show as guest host not too long ago, because he too is from New Jersey. And my understanding is, you folks take your pizza seriously in New Jersey. So best pizza in New Jersey.
Without a doubt, Santillo's in Elizabeth, New Jersey.
Santillo's. And I will ask question 1B. What is the perfect pizza for you?
Well, which is interesting. I personally like pepperoni and sausage.
Plain and simple, classic. Nothing wrong. What kind of crust though? What kind of crust do they do in New Jersey?
Well, it's different one. Santillo makes their own, and it's a nice. It's a soft crust. You don't find too many thin crust here.
Okay.
So we're more of a bready state.
That's all right. Hey, I'm from Chicago. Like, we're all about crust here.
No.
The more the better.
We're
right?
not that big, bro.
Awesome stuff. All right, question number 2. So I found it interesting that you named your original company after your first daughter, and that your daughters complained so was it the middle or the youngest that complained that the company was named after your oldest?
Definitely the middle, because she's the bossiest one. So it's definitely her. And that would be Kennedy.
That's awesome. Awesome stuff. Rich, question number 3 to you.
Well, I was going to ask a daughter-related question as well, because there was a point in time when you were at home with your wife and 3 daughters. It was you and 4 women in the house. Do you have any advice for surviving and thriving in that environment?
Yeah, just shut up. Just shut up, because essentially, I used to make this joke all the time. I have 4 wives and 5 mothers, and that's exactly what happens. So you really don't win. You even when you think you're on the right track, they'll just trip you up. So just shut up and go on about your day and be happy.
That's awesome. Good sage advice right there. All right, question number 4 to me. What should I ask you? See, this is the problem I having to come up with on the fly. It's not going to come up with it on the fly. I'll ask something simple, because I didn't ask you at the top of the show, and I usually like to kind of learn a little bit more about what people do outside of work. So what is your number 1 hobby outside of work?
Trying to breathe. No, I actually, which I haven't done it a little bit, and I'm pushing myself to get back, but I brew my own beer. So
really?
that is yes.
That's cool. So do you have a particular style that you like to brew, or what have you made?
Belgian triples is my favorite, and I will do basically, you can get recipes and you can do basically clones of ones you like, or you come up with your own. So essentially what I do is I'll use a clone and then throw in something I may want to try a little twist on. But I'm a big craft beer enthusiast. And so, we go to a lot of beer shows, conventions, things along that nature. So, but brewing beers is something, it's kind of relaxing. It's fun. Takes a long time. And just from the brew portion to, anywhere from 4 weeks to 3 months before you can actually taste what you've made. But it's great.
Very, very neat. We're going to talk after the show, because I got a story I want to tell you, but I don't want to bore the listening audience with it. Okay. So Rich, you know what? I'm going to take question 4B because I'm the co-host and I can do what I want. Of the commercial craft beers, like ones that you could go to a store and buy that people might have heard of, what is your favorite commercial craft beer?
Brewer or beer itself?
One or both, whatever is easiest to answer. I'm
partial to a company called Dogfish Head, which is in Milton, in Delaware, Milton, Delaware. Yeah. I love most of the stuff that they make. So that would be my favorite. And if I had to pick a favorite beer they make, It is the 90-minute IPA.
90-minute IPA. I'm gonna put that on my list to try. I've had a lot of Dogfish beers. I don't know if I've had that one though. So really good choice. Rich, question number 5 to you.
So you walk into a lot of stores and they have that dollar bill that's encased in plastic and so on. So this will be a work related question. Do you remember the very first thing you sold to your very first customer?
Actually, yes. I built the first thing I sold was a custom built PC. I remember that I sold it for $950, and it was the first thing I did as an official company.
Neat. And I'm willing to bet you remember the specs of the build if it was your first.
I have it written down. I'm trying to remember because I did the first one I did. It was I will tell you this. It was an AMD. It wasn't Intel. It was an AMD based machine, and that was to keep costs down. I can't remember the specs. I feel bad. I feel terrible actually. I don't remember the specs.
So this was a 2003 time period.
2000. Yep, 2000. We incorporated in 2002. Yeah,
so
2003.
Probably an AMD 64.
I don't even think we were there yet.
I think they were.
You guys have me back. I'll have the exact specs. I do have the receipt. So
yeah, I'd be curious. We're probably like 1 or 2 gigs of RAM. I'm just trying to think what computers would have been back then. But yeah,
it was Windows 7. Probably 2 gigs of RAM. Yeah,
and a modem. It probably had a modem in it. Did it have a
no modem?
No modem.
We made
100
broadband by then.
network card.
Yeah, probably 10100 broadband, but we'd made broadband by then.
Awesome stuff. Well, very cool. Thanks for playing along. Always good to learn a little bit more about our guests and some of the things that they do. So very neat. Rich, don't worry. Mike, I got a couple of questions for you. And I'm going to give you a chance to talk about the podcast. One other thing you want to talk about, but first, Rich, what I missed last week. So you're going to have to tell me what I missed, and you're going to have to tell us what might be coming up in the future.
Yeah, well, a great way to catch up on what you might have missed on Fridays at ChannelProNetwork.com. Look for our In Case You Missed It post, which is written by our own James Gaskin. James is on the summer schedule right now. He's posting every other week, but this is one of those weeks, and he's going to be talking, got a little more news from Inspire, a cloud wide area networking solution from AWS, data loss prevention software from Cato Networks, and what happens when a black bear messes with the strictest teacher you had in elementary school. James will have the details on that for you. Hint, doesn't come out well for the bear. Now, coming up next week, the ASCII group is hosting its next event. This one's in Toronto. IT by Design is doing its Build IT Build It Live conference in New Jersey, and off the air, Rick mentioned that he's going to that one. I was going to go to that one. I had to back out in the end, but should be a very interesting show. And then AWS is doing its Reinforce conference next week. That's their cloud security conference. And I already know for a fact there are some vendors we are familiar with who are going to be announcing things, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that a little bit more next week.
Very good stuff. You're not going to want to miss it, folks. Our guest today, Rick Smith, CEO of Renactus Technology, CEO, president, founder, all of those high title kind of job profession titles. It applies to him. Thanks for being on. I hope you had fun.
I had a great time. Thank you guys for having me.
Good. He's also the host of the MSP Unplugged podcast, co-host, I should say. Not to discount Paco here, co-host of the MSP Unplugged podcast. Rick, tell us where we can find you. How can we subscribe to that? Where can we find you?
Well, you can find us at mspunplugged.com. We're on our show is live every Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesday at 7 p.m. That's what we call it Tech Talk Tuesday. Is when we just have either Paco and I are talking about what's going on in our business or how to help with business, or we have a tech who, comes on and we talk about their business and have a discussion. And then we have what we call Resource Thursday, which is Thursday at 10 a.m. That's Eastern time, where we have a vendor on that we interviewed and see how they can help our listeners help, grow their business. And one of the other things I just wanted to give a quick mention to is the way Paco and I met, was at a conference that was given by what is now an offshoot of MSP Unplugged. But and we are sponsoring an event called Techcon Unplugged, which is September 16th to the 18th. It's in Chicago at the Chicago Hilton Rosemont. It is more so, it's a little different than your normal conference, because it is more so business owner focused. We like to use the terms is put on for us, by us. And, we do have vendors there, but those vendors are hand selected by us, that they help, to sponsor. They come, they talk about their product, but they also offer more so sound advice and information and helping to grow your business. A lot of the content there is driven strictly by business owners in the community. We have a private Facebook group, and anyone who comes usually joins the Facebook group, and I'd say 70% of the content that is done by us. So, there's any member of the MSP community will do a presentation in a breakout or in a panel discussion or in a full group topic. So I do encourage anyone, if you're interested, I don't want to make this a commercial, but if you're interested, you can go to techconunplugged.com, and we do offer a discount code. Tickets are $2.99. Again, it's September 16th to the 18th. And there's a discount code if you're listening to this. You can do ChannelPro 75, which will get you $75 off your ticket.
Fantastic. That's something you don't want to miss. We'll put links to that in the show notes page for episode 233. Also in the YouTube area, open up the description area, you'll find links to that as well. Now, Rick, if anybody else wanted to connect with you, like on social or learn more about Renactus Technology or business, where can they go? How can they find you there?
You can find me a bunch of places, but my rick@renactus.com. You can email me directly. LinkedIn, it's Rick Smith Renactus is LinkedIn, or it's Rick Smith Renactus. You can find me there, or again, the other way, probably easiest, is rick@mspunplugged.com, which is where I seem to get most of the emails that come into me nowadays. But again, those are the best ways to connect with me. Facebook, I'm on Facebook as well. You find me, I'll be the guy with the three girls, and you'll see me and three girls in the picture. So
and also, hey, they are really, really good at naming companies. If somebody wanted to hire your daughters to name their company, how can they get a hold of them?
Got to go through me first. I need a finder's fee. And actually, though, I didn't say this, but my middle daughter, who's just finished her freshman year in college, she's working for me this summer. And she is awesome at graphic arts and, photography. So she's helped us with our marketing stuff, a lot of stuff we have coming out. So I'm actually very proud of that, but she still makes me pay her.
Darn kids. Of course they do. Well, awesome stuff. Well, Rick, thank you so much for being on. It was a delight having you here, and I cannot wait to have you back on again sometime down the road. And when will that be? We don't know. But if you don't want to miss it, you got to make sure to subscribe to the ChannelPro Weekly Podcast. Everywhere podcasts are found, go and subscribe there. We're on YouTube, and for the audio version, we're on Spotify, Stitcher, we're on Apple Podcasts. Go, everywhere. Just go find, subscribe, hit do that. If you like to watch, we're on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button, the bell, the notifications, all that kind of stuff. Hit the like button, leave a comment, really important stuff as well. That helps the show out quite a bit. If you're on the audio ones, leave a rating. That's always a good thing to do as well. ChannelProNetwork.com is the website you should go to each and every day. Set it as your homepage. Make sure that you're checking it out for the latest news, articles, white papers, resources, downloads, all kinds of great information to not only keep you on top of what's going on in the industry, but also to help you make more money, grow your business, run your business more efficiently, all that kind of stuff. So do that as well. We're on the social networks everywhere that there are social networks. You can follow us there. And I think that's it. So go and do all that stuff, and we will see everyone in episode 234 next week. See you then.